I think we've all seen that comic where there's two booths. One of the booths has a banner that says uncomfortable truths, and the other one has a banner that says comforting lies. And there's a big line of people going to the booth that says comforting lies. And there's a person at the booth that looks a little upset or sad that no one is lining up to hear uncomfortable truths. And here's the thing, I don't think anyone that sees that comic sees themselves in that line waiting for a comforting lie. I think most of us have this view of ourselves that we are in a relentless search for truth and that we will take truth no matter how uncomfortable it is. But from personal experience, that's one of the hardest, most frustrating things that I have encountered as I've tried to learn more about philosophy and spirituality and religion, is that we are all plagued with self-deception. And what makes this even more frustrating is that we can see self-deception in someone else very easily, but it's incredibly hard to see it in yourself, and it's even harder to want to do something about it. But in my opinion, one of the most simple and true parables that Jesus ever taught was the parable of the mote and the beam in your eye. And he's essentially saying in that parable that, you can see the mote in someone else's eye, but maybe it would serve you better if you took the beam out of your own eye. And what I think Jesus is trying to say here is that we can see what is wrong with someone else so easily. But what's harder to see is what's wrong with ourselves. And so if we can just turn that critical look inwards and focus on ourselves, we'd be much better off. Telling the truth is something that is taught by pretty much every religion, leader, mentor, and self-help author out there. They all talk about how important it is to tell the truth. And I think when most of us read that or hear that, what we think of is not lying to other people. But I think what a lot of these authors are getting at is that the more important thing is, and the harder thing to do, is to not lie to yourself. I think that is what Friedrich Nietzsche, I think that's how you say his name, I'm pretty sure that's what he was getting at in his book. And the section is called Tell the Truth or At Least Don't Lie. And in that section, there's a quote. And the quote says, "The strength of a person's spirit would then be measured by how much truth he could tolerate, or more precisely, to what extent he needs to have it diluted, disguised, sweetened, muted, or falsified." It's no secret that I love to talk about our personal narrative, the story that we tell ourselves. And I think that's what Friedrich Nietzsche is getting at here when he says that the strength of a person's spirit is based on how much truth a person can hold, can accept. Because in our personal narrative, that is our most vulnerable way where we can fall prey to self-deception, where the lies that we tell ourselves can have the biggest, strongest, most powerful impact on who we are. Because the story that we tell ourselves dictates how we experience life. And so the question is, how much truth can we handle? How much truth can we add to our personal narrative? Because removing bias, removing the comfortable lies that we live is incredibly difficult and uncomfortable. It takes a lot of introspection, a lot of critical thought, and a willingness to confront these uncomfortable truths about yourself. Because a lot of times this self-deception goes deep, and we hold a perspective of ourselves that's just not true. And we hold a perspective of the beliefs that we hold that dictate our lives that's just not true. And so this process of overcoming self-deception is difficult. But in my experience, and a lot of people a lot smarter than me have also arrived at the same conclusion, living with self-honesty, living with the least amount of self-deception is the key to living a happy, authentic life rather than sleeping through it. So in summary, there are two things that I took away from learning about this. Number one, we cannot change or control anyone else. And every time we try and do that, it doesn't end well. Which leads me to number two, worry about yourself. That's something that I tell my son, it feels like on a daily basis when he's constantly tattling on his sister. Worry about yourself. And I feel like that's something that I could say to myself just as often, because as humans, we kind of fixate on the problems of other people. We can see the self-deception in other people. We can see people in line to get comforting lies, but we don't realize that we are standing in that same line. And so if we worry more about ourselves, if we take that critical look and turn it inward, we're going to be a lot better off. When we live more authentically, we become more aligned with our true selves. And that decreases the likelihood that we will essentially sleep through this life, unconsciously living a life that's not even real, because the story that we tell ourselves dictates the experience that we have. And if the personal narrative that we tell ourselves isn't real, then we're essentially living a lie. And I would much rather live awake to reality and with less self-deception, so that I can live a life that's authentic and true and real, even though it might be uncomfortable. But anyways, if this was interesting or helpful or thought-provoking, I hope you hit the like button and stick around, and I'll catch you in the next video.